I have been stuck at the 500K a year mark and I can't grow.
You might even self-sabotage without even knowing, like unconsciously, the very behaviors that we know are part of the success formula.
Instead of being pushing from behind, we're actually walking ahead and encouraging people to come with us. That last 20% probably is just my ego anyway. It doesn't have to be the same as me.
In order to grow beyond $500,000 towards $1 million, you must.
Welcome to the Salon Owners Collective Podcast. Now, if you're feeling stuck in your salon's growth, like it seems like no matter what strategies you implement, who you hire, how much effort you put in, you just can't move the needle. Are you stuck at a ceiling? It's frustrating, right? You pour your time, your money, your heart into your salon only to see little or no progress. But let's pause and reflect a moment. Have you ever introduced a new strategy, like a new rebooking strategy, maybe a new service, felt a rush of excitement that everything is going to change and it works, and you think, yes, I've done it, we have arrived. But then without realizing it, you slip back into old habits and that promising strategy fades away. I've been there too. I've learned that lesson. And as a former salon owner, I know how easy it is to celebrate the small wins and then forget there's more work to be done. Today, I'm excited to share a conversation with a salon owner from our Salon Mastery program. She came to me stuck at the 500K mark since COVID, hadn't grown. She really was desperate to break through the $1 million mark. So today's session, I've invited our boardroom coach, Joel, back on the podcast. He is an expert at leadership and growing $1 million plus salons. So I thought he was a great person to have on the podcast. Together, we explore the steps that need to happen to grow from $500,000 to the $1 million and beyond. Like, where do we get stuck? What are the roadblocks? Let's unpack those. Before we dive in, I want to thank our sponsor, Shortcuts, the leading salon software provider. Stick around because later in this episode, I'm going to reveal Shortcuts' 3 magic numbers to boost your revenue. Could be helpful. Meanwhile, let's jump into the episode with Joel. Thanks for joining me on the Salon Owners Collective Podcast. I'm super excited for today's session, and I have Joel, the boardroom coach, with me. Hey, Joel. Thanks for coming on again. I'm excited about today's session because we got an email the other day in my inbox of someone who has booked a call to chat with me next week. And she said to me, Larissa, since COVID, I have been stuck at the 500K a year mark and I can't grow. I've hit a ceiling. I'm doing all of the things. Why has nothing changed? And I thought this is a good conversation to have. Her goal is to get to the $1 million mark. And you are the boardroom coach who coaches $1 million business owners. So I thought we should really have a good discussion about, like, what is the difference between a 500K a year business owner who's stuck and $1 million business owner? Like, how come one got there and the other one didn't?
Yeah.
This is a good topic.
It is a great topic. It's a great email. And just for those that don't know, so at Salon Owners Collective, I work with our boardroomers. That is those that are turning over at least $1 million and beyond, of course, and also leaders that are almost there and on their way. So that owner out there that is turning over about $500,000 that is feeling stuck, I reckon there'd be a lot of hands going up right now in cars listening to this podcast. It's a challenging position to be in, especially when you're trying every day to move the needle and the effort is there, but you're stuck. Time passes and you're in the same position.
Yeah, that's the comment that I get is like, Larissa, I'm doing all the things, but I'm not moving the needle. What the heck is going on? And so I thought this was a good thing to talk about. And we decided ultimately there's 2 things, didn't we? 2 things that hold people back and 2 things that are holding people back from the growth. And I think the first one is that if we think about the systems and processes that we need to put into our business to establish a good service, to be able to employ people well, I think there's this belief maybe that I've done the work, I've put the system in place, I did the thing, Why am I not getting a result?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like, Riss, I see this all the time, not just in industry, but in lots of areas of life. It's like you experience some version of a win, and then the foot comes off the pedal a little bit. It's kind of like, oh, I've done it, and you know that I kind of like to play golf, and if I have a good round of golf, what can happen is like, oh, great, I've hit 18 over. For me, that's really good, and then complacency. I take the foot off the pedal and I don't get out there and practice again until the next time I play golf, and I'm expecting for it to be better. But I haven't actually done anything since my win.
Yeah, exactly. I put the systems in place. I had the meeting with my team member. I showed people how to upgrade, and they're not doing it. And the business is not growing. And so I think there's this belief of, like you said, there's once I'm done, and then not going back to continue. Um, why do you think that is? Why do people take their foot off the gas and stop practicing? Is it a matter of stop practicing or stop doing the work? Or yeah, what is that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think ultimately, in some way, shape, or form, the thing that got us to the place that we're like, okay, great, fantastic, we've been able to achieve this, can often be looked at as really simple. Like we just started running huddles and then all of a sudden everything changed. But it can't be that powerful. And that's often the misconception, is that simple is actually powerful, but it's really powerful when it's replicated, when it becomes like a habit, a system, when it's really consistent.
Yeah, that's a thing. Success must, I think there's a belief that success must come after hard work. And so if I'm doing something and it's really simple to do and I got a result, even if it was small, that can't be it. There must be more. I must do more. But it's complicated. And so now it's overwhelming. And somehow the simple, successful things fall by the wayside with this constant trying to look for the magic bullet.
Yeah, you totally. And because before I didn't know how to create said success, and now I'm experiencing, like, it has to be more complicated. It can't be just running the basics every day and possibly refining and tweaking elements of it, but just doing the basics over and over. It can't be that simple. Surely, Riss. No way. Come on.
Well, I reckon 80% of any success activity. So let's just take running morning huddles. I know that when people come into Salon Mastery and we teach them how to do morning huddles in a certain way, that is the number one fastest way to get sales up and move the needle super quickly. So let's just take that as like, that's a really good example. So let's use that example for this exercise. And so they do that, they get a certain level of success, and boredom or complacency sets in, or the repetition of doing the same thing again and over again and not knowing how to keep it the spice of life and keep it interesting and variable over time. Somehow those systems fall away. I don't know, someone was away one day and so they didn't run the huddle, and then a client, they prioritized a client in the huddle space, and before you know, huddles aren't happening and they're wondering why we used to be really booked and now we're not. What happened? And I think as creative entrepreneurs, we get bored of the simple systems before anybody else does, because it's not fun, it's not shiny, and I don't know how to keep it alive when it's the same shit all the time. But there's something about consistency with the basics that actually props up your whole business.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, if we really like get under the hood of psychology, is like, we're just constantly craving a sense of novelty. And so sometimes we might even self-sabotage without even knowing, like unconsciously, the very behaviors that we know are part of the success formula. And, you know, I've often looked at high performance from business through to sport and everything in between to try and figure out, like, what is it that the highest of performers are doing those that are able to consistently produce incredible results. And you look at like the late great Kobe Bryant, for example, whilst we're talking about sport, like when he was interviewed, like most NBA players, they're training at 8 o'clock in the morning and they're training at 4 o'clock in the afternoon every day. Like they have a really high output in terms of repetition and dribbling and shooting and three throws and doing shuttle runs. Like this is training, right? And what Kobe did for 15 years is he just added in a 5 a.m. and became the best ever by doing nothing like different really, but going, what are the basics? And then just adding in 33% more than anyone else, multiplied over time and became arguably the greatest person to ever. It's the basics.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we know that, it takes 10,000 repetitions of something to become an expert. And so we need to do the groundwork like I was going to say JFDI. That's not quite right. But anyway, do the frickin' work is what I'm really trying to say. Too many letters. We need to do the work. One of the challenges with growth, of course, is that, we can't, as we grow. So if we do the work consistently, day after day, the basics, growth is inevitable. Like actually growth is inevitable. The challenge with growth, of course, is that growth breaks things. And so as we grow, our the demand on our time and the things that we need to pay attention to changes. And so as that changes, especially if your team grows, now you've got to deal with team dynamics and you've got to actually manage humans. And so your ability to do some of the basics changes. So I think that's where like the basics can fall apart. Like we used to do the huddle, but now I have to do all the freaking things. And then, Jane's sick and I have to deal with that. And so we don't do the basics. So I say, doesn't matter who does the basics, doesn't matter who does the reps. Someone needs to run it. So we need to have a manager in place. So we need to be mindful of growth. And as we grow, that we don't let the fundamentals fall apart, just get somebody else to do it.
Yes.
If you can't do it, somebody else.
And that's the great thing about being an owner is you get to choose. Like you get to choose your role, whether it's you or whether it's a manager. But let's be really clear about what I'm hearing you say, Riss, is that once we identify what the basics are that move the needle, and once we acknowledge that consistency is the game, like just keep doing the reps, then there is the novelty right there. It's like, who does it? The art of then delegating that to your manager or holding on to it. Like we were talking earlier about in New Zealand, we have Lisa Carrington, who's the most celebrated Olympian ever in New Zealand. And I would imagine that on her journey to her now revered and respected success, like as she's grown over the last however many years, there has been more and more things that pull her attention, from media to volunteer pro bono things, all of that stuff, right? But there's one thing that she does every single day is she gets in the water and puts in the reps. Now, she can't delegate that out. Maybe you can delegate it out, but let's never take our eye off the 80-20, that there are some basics and fundamentals that must be done consistently every day because we know they move the needle.
Okay, let's focus in on the 80-20 because I think as the business owner, there's the 20% that only you can do, and you need to keep those things. And sometimes, Joel, they're boring. They're fucking boring. Like I've got to, pay the wages and pay the bills. Those are boring. Actually, that is one thing I mostly delegate, but let's just take that as an example. Sometimes there are some things that only you can do, and you need to do those and just suck it up. We can't have shiny objects all of the time. So that's kind of the 20 stuff that only you can do. Like Lisa, she has to be the one that gets in the pool and does the reps. But if you think about Richard Branson, he doesn't do the 80% of his businesses. How does he have, I don't even know how many businesses does he have. How does one guy do all of the stuff? Like how does one guy have that many businesses and be that global and be that big? Well, he doesn't do even 80% of the stuff. He probably does 1% of the stuff, but it's this important stuff that only he can do, and he delegates everything out. So I think it's important to remember that, like it doesn't have to be revolved around you. Like I remember the day when I realized that somewhere deep in the back from a non-ego point of view, I still thought that I had to be superwoman. Like I had to do all of the things, and I just kept saying yes to everything because I believed that I needed to do it. It was my job to do it. It was my responsibility to do it. But then I realized that I actually can't be Superwoman. That's actually literally impossible. So I need to delegate out those things. Hey, Larissa here. Are you loving this episode so far? I'm really glad that you're here, and thanks for joining me each week on the podcast. Now, super quick, I have a question for you. Have you ever found yourself wishing for a secret weapon that will boost your salon's revenue? It's kind of like trying to find your way through a maze sometimes. But guess what? I have a shortcut waiting just for you. Shortcuts, Salon Software, have shared with me a guide that contains 3 magic numbers that could totally flip the script for your salon. Knowing these numbers could help you find that missing piece to get your salon on the fast track to success. So if you're excited, get instant access to this white paper that reveals 3 crucial insights by clicking on the Tell Me How button in the show notes. Let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, it's just, we've got a belief. No one can do it as good as Larissa can do it, right? And you've got years and multiple experiences that back that belief up. Like when you jump behind the chair, or when you run the meeting, or when you do the thing, like it's efficient, it's effective, you get to the punchline real quick. And at some point, you need to invest in a new belief. And that new belief has got to be not that you do it the best, that actually that your team could do it better. And then you start to invest into that. You start to invest into that idea that your manager and your team can actually raise the bar. They can perform in a way that is in the ballpark of what you can do as kind of like the entrepreneur, the owner, the original, the leader.
Can I pose an idea that, if we get somebody else to do the thing, that it's okay that if they do that thing better than you, and it's also okay if they don't do it as well as you. Like actually 80%, if I give a job to Jemima and Jemima does it 80% of what I can do it, as long as 80% is effective, gets the job done, there's a result, she's happy, and the business is moving forward, that last 20% probably is just my ego anyway. It doesn't have to be the same as me. Like let go of it being exactly the way, for progress, for the better of the business. Get yourself out, from the 500 to the million. Okay, I want to kind of summarize that. I want to summarize that. So what often the 500K owner believes is that I put the thing in place. It's once I did the thing and we easily forget it go. But actually we need to install systems and processes. We need to ensure that they're consistent, and it doesn't need to be you.
Yeah, so good. And just on that last bit, it doesn't need to be you. So often this comes up. In order to grow in this situation beyond $500,000 towards $1 million, in order to grow, you must let go.
Yes, you must let go, but don't let go of the basics. So someone needs to own the basics. Okay, we thought that the other thing that ensured that salon owners were stuck at the 500K mark is that they believe that they need to push and motivate their teams.
Oh,
What?
Yeah, push.
What? I have to push and motivate my team. But actually, instead, we need to create an environment where people can perform because they are self-motivated to perform. So let's talk a little bit about creating an environment rather than cracking the whip and pushing and going, how the heck can I motivate my people? Because I think there's a belief that I need to motivate them and then they need to do the work.
Yeah. 100%. And I genuinely think that when stylist or a therapist produces their results and you're having a one-on-one with them, that when they're underperforming, for example, that we feel like it's our responsibility as the owner to fix that. Like we have to teach them or or push them or have a hard conversation with them. And those things absolutely at times are going to be really, really necessary. But yeah, absolutely. Environment is everything. And what we know is that you can have someone like me, enters a workplace and the environment is good. Yeah. The environment is good. And regardless of who I am or how I roll, what will happen is that my behaviors will be influenced by that environment because we're all being influenced all the time. And I will start to behave in line with that environment. You can take me to a different salon or a different environment, and let's just say the behaviors there or the environment is bad. I will start to perform badly. It's just the nature of performance. You become who you're surrounded with. Yeah. And so it's not about pushing and pushing and pushing the person to perform. It's actually about creating the environment whereby everybody excels naturally, performs consistently.
Yeah. So instead of being behind the donkey or the cart or something, I'm not quite sure what analogy to use here. Instead of being pushing from behind, we're actually walking ahead and encouraging people to come with us. Like come, we're off to do something really interesting. We're going on an interesting journey. We've got really exciting things coming ahead. Do you want to come? And so people are kind of raising their hand and saying, I want to be part of what's going on here. And that's energetically a very different way for team members to engage than you going, quietly under your breath, for fuck's sake, can you just do the work?
Yeah, 100%. And we talk about this a lot, Riss. We talk about this a lot in Boardroom as well, is that most people in your business, in your team, they've got their head down within the context of their roles. They're focused on great customer service, on the client journey, like they're in the details of delivery. And that's good. And at the end of the day, when our staff do that work, they can feel really satisfied. But it is 100% the role of the leader to cast hope that tomorrow can and will be better. Like it is just, there is no way around that. Like you have to be the person that's painting a picture of a great future for your people.
Yeah, and then reinforcing the greatness, the good behavior, identifying what it takes to move towards that future, reinforcing good behavior not good behavior, but the right behavior that's moving us towards that. I think too many of us owners, or the 500K owner, is looking back and really focusing on all the things that are going wrong and that what they're not doing. And I think when we're looking in the rearview mirror, looking at the kids fighting in the back, like it's soul destroying for the owner, and it's just sort of somehow reinforces the attention that they're getting for the bad behavior, and this weird dynamic is created. Whereas a really smart mother, remember I'm in the car with the kids fighting in the back, is looking out the window and starts playing a game that's really exciting, or singing a song, or counting the cars, and redirects the attention and the focus to the kids to something that's interesting and exciting and dynamic and they want to be part of. It's more exciting than fighting with their siblings in the backseat.
Yeah, totally. And like how you feel is your life. How you feel is your job. Like if your staff members are coming to work and we're always focused on what's wrong, what's broken, what's missing, like there's an emotion that goes with that. It's called anxiety. It's called disengagement. It's called overwhelm, right? And if that becomes the emotional content of their days, like you're pushing shit uphill trying to improve performance when people are feeling that way. And so absolutely, we've got to talk about the future. We've got to be confident in the future, even though, like, just between me, you, and the owners that are listening to this, like, no one can predict the future. Like, we don't know, like, exactly what's going to happen, but we can be courageous enough to go, if you give me some time with my skill and vision and my ability to X, Y, and Z, and our team and our commitment all in the right direction, this is where we're heading. And that's exciting for people. Like, they've done the research. Like, what people want in a leader is someone that's inspiring. You want to inspire your people? Get clear about the future that you're building and creating for your team.
And then people want to just naturally be part of that.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, cool. I'm excited. How? Yeah. And it's like, keep doing what you're doing. And also a little tweak here. And also think about this. And now there's a context for all of the performance nudges. Yeah. Now there's a context. And that's a huge part of creating an environment where people thrive. And when they're driving to work, they're excited to get there because they're supported and they're challenged. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing I know to be true is that people will always leave us when they run out of future. And so we need to create that future. So there's something to be part of. And that when they look into their future, whether they want to buy a house or they want to have a holiday or a family in the future, whatever their future is, that they can see you, your business, your brand being the container which provides them with the resource to be able to do that. They've got to see you in their future. Otherwise they're going to look somewhere else.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And, like when you model month after month, stepping into possibility and creation for the business, what happens is it actually rubs off on your staff and they get to exercise that same trait in their own life. So when you start to talk about the things that are most important to that staff member, actually they're drawing that from the inspiring owner because they modeled it. Maybe the first person in their life ever to do that possibility is like, we can have that conversation. We can talk about that thing. We can step into better futures. And that's a great thing to be a part of.
Yeah. Okay. I think that we've nailed a couple of really key things, Joel, on why salons get stuck at the 500K mark and they can't move sort of from that manager stage through the leader stage and get to the CEO stage of business. And so if we sort of recap the two main things that we talked about today is, one, you've got to go back to basics, get really good at the basics, get the reps in, to your key point. And if doing the reps is super boring to you because you're a creative entrepreneur like me, then you just need to create the system for the reps to happen and then inspire someone else who can step forward and be excited to take on something new and take over those things. So that's number one. And then number two is that we don't want to just become managers. We want to become inspirational leaders. So we don't have to push and nudge people, but actually that we can walk a really exciting path and invite people to come along who are excited to join us.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just add as well that with the first point around getting back to the basics and then maybe delegating that out to your manager, like, come to Salon Mastery. Let us take care of your manager. Like, we work with them on their mindset and their skill set so that they can actually step forward with confidence to not replace you, but to replace some of the character traits that you once brought if you're looking to step back and to really focus on growing the business. And last but certainly not least, in terms of leading instead of managing, that's one of the most exciting sports you'll ever play. Love to have a chat with you about that if that's of interest to you.
Amazing. All right. Well, thanks again, Joel, for joining me on the podcast. I will certainly make sure that you come back. And thanks again for joining us.
Awesome.
Till next week, same time, same place. Ciao for now.
See ya.
All right, well, that's a wrap. Joel, come back on the podcast again very soon. If you have any questions that you would like, any unanswered questions, then send us a DM to Salon Owners Collective or to me. You know where I am. I'm good on the DMs. And you're welcome to post a question in the Profitable and Successful Salon Owners Facebook group. And if you want to talk about breaking through that growth ceiling, maybe you're stuck at 500K as well, you're really desperate to get to the $1 million mark. Hey, we're really good at doing that. If you want to chat, you are very welcome to book a strategy call with me. It's complimentary, no charge. You can tell me a little bit about your salon, about your situation, what's holding you back. Let's unpack it. Let's build out a bit of a strategy plan for you. Maybe Salon Mastery is the right place for me to help you. Otherwise, same time, same place on the podcast. Till next week. Ciao for now. Strategy plan for you. Maybe Salon Mastery is the right place for me to help you. Otherwise, same time, same place.